Dear learners, my name is Tamanpreet Kaur from BSS and today we are going to discuss about business communication. The word communication means transmitting of message from one head to another, and when we adopt the concept of communication in the business scenario, it is called as business communication. But business communication is not a narrow concept, it is a wider concept. It involves so many precautions and principles so that effective communication would take place. It is appropriate to adopt a correct method of communication at the correct time and at the correct situation also. For example, when we require evidence, we should adopt written communication. In contrast to this, if we require no consuming of time, then we will take verbal communication. There are various forms like letters, reports, memos, notices. Next comes the nature of communication. Here is the list of nature of communication. We will discuss it thoroughly. Number one, it involves at least two persons. There should be a participation of receiver and sender during the communication process. Communication is a two-way process. It does not mean merely sending and receiving, but a correct comprehension is required during the communication process. The correct understanding what the sender wants to convey, and receiver adopt in the same way. Then comes purpose of communication. The ultimate goal of communication is to create an understanding, the right understanding, which the sender wants to convey. Next comes the form of communication. It can be in various forms, for example, order, instruction, report, queries. It may be verbal and it may be written. These are the features of communication. Next comes the feature of communication, the scope of communication. It pervades everywhere. It is prevalent at every level of management, at every sphere of life. Next comes it is a dynamic process. It is a flexible process which is influenced by the psychology of the receiver also and thinking of the sender also. And again, this also depends on the five sensory organ of the receiver. Communication is much more than words. Here we are not telling that transmitting of words, we are saying that transmitting of message. It means that the message, it can be in through signs, through symbols, through gestures. The information which we want to convey is actually a communication. Next comes last, communication. It is an interdisciplinary science. If we see that only getting the message delivered and only the transmitting of messages communication, no. Communication derives from various sciences, for example, body language, human behavior, attitude. These all the things must be included at the part of communication. Next comes the process of communication. There are some of the components and elements of the communication. Just for an example, a sender, she transmit the message to the receiver. The process will start with the sender. Then comes the message. The message is the most important component and will trigger the response from the receiver. It can be in verbal and non-verbal form. Then comes the encoding part. For example, here, encoding, the meaning of encoding is converted certain words into another, the thoughts which are conveyed into certain words. एप्पल को एप्पल क्यों बोला जाता है? Because we have stated the object into encoded form. उस ऑब्जेक्ट को हमने एप्पल का नाम दिया. दिस इज कॉल्ड एज इनकोडिंग. यहाँ पर कोई पहले कोई सर्टेन रूल नहीं था, कोई प्रिंसिपल नहीं था कि उसका नाम एप्पल था. वी हैव इनकोडेड दैट ऑब्जेक्ट इनटू द फॉर्म ऑफ एप्पल. नेक्स्ट कम्स द चैनल. There must be a channel of communication too. Channel can be through telephonic area, through letter, email, fax, and according the situation, we will change the channel also. Then the receiver. Receiver has to perform various function during communication process. For example, he will receive the message, he will decode the message, and the most important is understanding of message. Then comes the feedback. This is one of the most important thing, that feedback is very essential during communication process. You have encoded the thought and then you are transmitting the message, but how the receiver has taken it will only be understood by the process of feedback. Feedback is done in order to recheck, in order to tally the receiver's thought into the ultimate answer, into the understood thought. Thank you for listening me carefully.